So Nintendo released a response. Smash World Tour responded again. This happened like late last night, apparently. I'm just getting kind of done seeing it a few hours ago. I want to do this video. Let's just kind of get right in. Nintendo would like to explain to all Super Smash Bros. Fans and interested parties the background and rationale related to our decision. Nintendo's decision was solely based on our assessment of the proposal submitted by the SWT and our evaluation of their unlicensed activity. This decision was not influenced by any external parties such as Panda Global. So first off, that's the truth. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I understand how from the outside it may seem that way, like, no, Dr. Allen told them to shut it down, and they went, yeah, we agree with you. Yeah, that's not how it works. No one tells Nintendo what to do. And this is why I was telling people that when it comes to this shutdown, it feels like a lot of the weight is on Nintendo instead of Panda Global. Even though Dr. Allen was apparently going around and shaking people down like Tony Soprano and come to me, we're going to break your legs and cancel your tour. Even with all that being said, their influence is very minimal in these types of decisions. I'm going to say something. I think I'm going to echo it throughout the video a lot. Understand that Nintendo is a business. These are business decisions. These decisions are never emotional, okay? So no one can emotionally manipulate Nintendo into doing anything. So this, as much as you guys want to think like, oh man, that can't be true, it's true. Any party that we grant a license to has to meet the high standards we require when it comes to health and safety of our fans. That's a key point, and I want to address that a little bit later because that's an important one. It's also important that a partner adheres to brand and IP guidelines and conduct itself according to professional and organizational best practices. We use the same approach to independently assess all partners. If we discover that a partner is doing something inappropriate, we will work to correct it. I'm going to put a pin on that too. When we notify the SWT we will not license their 2022 or 2023 activities, we also let them know verbally we're not requiring they cancel the 2022 finals event because of the impact it would have on players. Thus, the decision to cancel SWT 2022 was and still is their own choice. This is a point of contention. SWT is saying, yes, you did. Nintendo saying, no, we did it. So it kind of is like a little bit of they said. We are opening to partnering with other organizations and will continue to offer licenses for major tournaments outside of the Panda Cup. Panda Global will continue to be a key partner, and we look forward to receiving proposals from other groups or tournament licenses. In the meantime, Panda continues to advocate on behalf of the Super Smash Bros. Community, even to the point that Panda has advocated for other organizations and tournaments to work with Nintendo, such as the Big House and the organizer SWT, to benefit the larger Super Smash Bros. Community. Nintendo cares about Super Smash Bros. Fans, community very much. Passionate feedback. We're committed to working hard to bring joy, fun, So end on a positive note. So this is one I'm sure a lot of people are going to read. They're going to go, WTF, what the hell's going, what the fuck? Panda Global continue to be a key partner. So that kind of might seem like a little bit of a surprise, right? But once again, there are no emotions here. It's all business. And you need to understand that, you know, a business is not like a jet ski, right? A business is like a yacht. Like it takes a lot of time to turn that boat. You understand? Nintendo doesn't just make, you know, off the whim decisions. You know, these investigations can take a while. And the other thing is that now a lot of that information that Smash World Tour is talking about is being corroborated. According to Smash World Tour, they had told them about what Dr. Allen was doing. According to what they were told about Nintendo, they say, hey, we're looking into it. It kind of sounded like they were sort of unhappy about it. Hey, this person does represent us, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. Now, a lot of that is being publicly corroborated by different tournament organizers. And they're basically backing up the Smash World Tour and saying, hey, these guys are telling the truth. I know for a fact Dr. Allen came to us, this, that, and the third, and, you know, making these kind of these threats. I think we'd call them threats, saying, hey, you do this or, you know, you're going to be shut down or whatever. You guys are going to be shut down for 2022. Nintendo doesn't I don't know how people think these things work, but Nintendo doesn't just read tweets and go up and get on the phone call with Panda Global and say, hey guys, so we're going to end this because, you know, we're reading these stories about it. Yes, the PR looks bad and they definitely don't like that, but an investigation is necessary, right? Before, once again, like they make that turn. The other thing about it is, let's say there was already an investigation. Let's say Nintendo did come to the conclusion that, wow, they're telling the truth. Dr. Allen has been going around, you know, saying these things. And in essence, since he is a partner of ours, he is misrepresenting us. There's one thing Nintendo doesn't like is anyone speaking on behalf of Nintendo. They don't like that. They don't. Especially people that are not 100% approved to speak on behalf of the company. They don't like that, right? If you're a Nintendo employee, you can't just all of a sudden start talking to the press about stuff, for example, right? That doesn't grant you the right. You have to become a spokesperson. I think it took me like years, and I had to go through like months of training in order to become a spokesperson when I was with the company. It's not just something like on a whim, they just let anyone do it. So let's say an investigation was already conducted and they came to that conclusion, or it's still in the middle of the investigation. Now they're receiving new information. Now, let's say Nintendo came to a conclusion, they had a meeting, and they said, yeah, we have to stop working with Panda Global. They're not just going to immediately cut ties. That's not how Nintendo's going to do this. What's going to happen is they come to a conclusion about Dr. Allen actually doing these things. They're just not going to work with them again. They're not just all of a sudden going to cut this license. Matter of fact, I don't even think they will publicly announce them cutting ties. I personally feel like what my prediction is that what would happen is that they just wouldn't work with Panda Global again. The thing about Nintendo is they don't play regular baseball. It's one strike. One mistake, you're out. They expect their partners. We all understand that Nintendo has pretty high standards. They definitely expect the same from A, their partners, and B, the people who are in any way, shape, or form attached to the Nintendo brand or the Nintendo name. So if they go through with this investigation, it comes out that, okay, these guys are right. This guy's running around like John Gotti over here, almost, in a sense, representing us in a very wrong light. We're just not going to renew this contract. So going forward, if we just never hear them partnering up with Panda Global, you can maybe make that guess that, it looks like they were able to get the investigation correct. If they do work with Panda Global again, then that means that their investigation came up with, or they reached a conclusion of, this isn't enough. It's okay for us to work with them again. But I understand that this might make some Nintendo fans a little bit angry. Like how can they continue to be a key partner after all the things that we heard? Once again, that these types of decisions at companies, it's not like it happens within 48 hours. There's a lot of things that need to go about. Nintendo's not just gonna just cut ties, especially like, isn't this thing at the end? I saw that the finals is like in a few weeks. Of course they're not gonna cut ties right now. They just won't renew it. Here's the response from them. They kind of put a piece of Nintendo's. We're struggling to understand why Nintendo contacted us at all last week if they truly wanted to continue operating. They said that we stand by our first follow-up. This is an interesting point. Mutual understanding that we would not be shut down. We were told directly that those times are over. They also claim to have this response after telling Nintendo, hey, this is going to impact a lot of people, international players. Nintendo says that they were confident that from A to Z, all consequences have been evaluated in making this decision, specifically acknowledging that fallout scenarios included some positive, some negative, and some really negative. So they're basically saying Nintendo was very aware of this cancellation happening and the impact that it would have. We're also struggling to understand what Nintendo's statement means for tournament organizers in general and the potential implications made about unlicensed event. That's kind of an important distinction for the community to make going forward, because if you're a tournament organizer right now, there is fear and uncertainty now, right? When you're putting together a tournament, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of money being spent, not just from organizers, but from competitors. And do you take that risk? Do you go into it with this knowledge, knowing that 2 weeks before your event, it can just get shut down? So that's something that's important for them to come to an agreement with Nintendo going forward. Even in this statement, David Brigwell said, maybe the most disappointing, concerning portion was what they say about Panda Global. This is especially concerning given Nintendo has been aware of Panda's behavior for quite some time, so much so that they directly told us on multiple occasions that it would be addressed. Yet even after countless corroborating testimonies from other community leaders, Nintendo continues to back Panda as a key partner. So that actually just echoes what I just said. It's possible that, this investigation either is still ongoing or they reach their conclusion. But either way, the solution is we're just not going to work with these guys again. We're incredibly grateful for the community support and corroboration regarding the truth of our claims. When so it was a significant risk, this is a big risk. I'll tell you that much. I would have want to mess with Nintendo, man. That law team is strong. We believe this may be one of the most important times Smash community has ever faced. So they basically stand by what they said. Now, I've always sort of stuck to the fact that there's always two sides of the story. If you only have one side, you don't have the full story. We're never going to hear Nintendo's full side. That's just not how Nintendo operates. Nintendo's not going to come out with a twit longer with receipts and say like, look, this is exactly what happened, in order to defend themselves. So it's kind of weird in that way. But the other thing that I feel is there's a part of me that feels like we don't have the full story from Smash World Tour. I'm always going to play devil's advocate in these types of situations as much as I am always siding with the underdog here. I feel like I always will. At the same time, I'm always going to keep my ear open to the other side. And one thing that's bothering me is this part right here. Any partner that would grant a license to us to meet the high standards we require when it comes to the health and safety of our fans. It's also important that partner adheres to brand and IP guidelines and conducts itself according to professional and organizational best practices. For whatever reason, Smash World Tour is not addressing that particular point. This is the second time that Nintendo's brought it up. They brought it up in both of those statements. They're basically trying to explain to fans, this is the reason why they didn't get their license. They couldn't meet the high standards we require when it comes to health and safety of our fans. I'm concerned that Smash World Tour has not addressed that particular point. It seems like they're sort of dancing around. And there is a part of me that feels that if you had something to say about that, you would have said it. I feel like Smash World Tour has been very thorough in their explanation about everything. So I get a little bit suspicious when they're not as open to the information of saying like, hey guys, Nintendo said we didn't meet health and safety of our standards. Here's everything that we did. And then give us all the information that they went through in order to guarantee the health and safety of the people that were attending that event. The fact that we didn't have that makes, like I said, it makes SWT's account a little bit shaky. And once again, you have to understand that I get the passion that you guys have for the community. Naturally, so you do have to understand that you are going to be a bit biased, right? You're always going to side with the community and say, no, Nintendo's lying. Nintendo has to be lying about this. It does, on the surface, kind of sound like Nintendo's gaslighting Smash World Tour. I will say that. But I'm not saying it from a place of, let me chisel this in stone. I'm coming from a place of, I have the same information that you guys have. I have limited information. That's why when I spoke about this in the last video I made, it was me kind of working up a theory like, hey, this is my guess as to what might have happened. It looks like I was, hit the bullseye when I said miscommunication, because even if it's not miscommunication from the Nintendo side, now we're coming up with this miscommunication between these two parties. Where Smash World Tour is saying like, wait, but you guys said this. Nintendo saying, no, of course we wouldn't tell you to shut down your championship. That was just a few weeks away. That wouldn't make any sense for us to do that. But at the same time, Nintendo also acknowledged that they wouldn't give them the license. So was the implication from Nintendo, saying, hey, you guys won't have the license, but we won't shut you down? And did Smash World Tour take it as these times are now over? Could Nintendo have meant, hey, the times are not over for you guys to run willy-nilly tournaments without meeting our high expectations? Maybe that's what they meant. So it's almost like they said something and Smash World Tour thought they meant something else. We just won't know. They claim that they have it in writing. I fully understand and respect why they would not. Smash World Tour would be really short-sighted for them to just forward us the email chain, stuff like that. Like, this is serious stuff. They're not going to do that. I 100% don't recommend them to do that. That would not be a smart thing for them to do. So we kind of are a little bit stuck in kind of they said. Now, this whole thing about high standards, that's always been sort of the case with Nintendo. I think that Nintendo internally has, for a little bit of time, operated with the see no evil, hear no evil kind of thing, where I think that anyone that has spoken to someone at Nintendo about putting on a tournament, I have a little bit of an idea who I think they're speaking to. And I think the thing about it is that there's always existed this friction between the Smash community and Nintendo. And as I said in my last video, there are employees who will always advocate for these tournaments to go through because we love the community. We love to watch the gameplay. Like we're fans as much as we are, representatives of Nintendo. So I think that a lot of people from within Nintendo that are talking to these organizers or setting up these meetings are kind of operating in see no evil, hear no evil, where it's like, yeah, you guys go ahead and do your thing, but they're not reporting that to the people up top and saying like, hey, just to let you know, these things are happening. That's why I think that we had that issue happen with that tournament that was using Slippy and they got shut down. I think there were people within Nintendo that were aware of that tournament happening. It's impossible that absolutely no one in Nintendo knew this was happening. And I think they looked at it happening and they said to themselves, see no evil, hear no evil. But someone else at the company heard about it. And of course they're going to shut it down. Like I said, you're operating in this legally gray area, right? And I think for a time, that's how Nintendo operated internally, was like, okay, you guys do your tournament. We know that it's not up to the Nintendo standards. We know for a fact it's not. But, we won't mess with you guys as long as you guys don't do anything egregious and crazy. It's almost like Nintendo allowing you guys to stream games or create YouTube content with their stuff. They look at it as like it's free advertising. As long as you don't jump off of the cliff with using their stuff, they're okay with you using it, right? So the big catalyst for change, I think, that happened internally in Nintendo, the reason why they started paying more attention was because of what happened, I believe was 2020? Senpai, Nairo, Zero, even Nairo and Zero, weren't they like official partners with Nintendo for a little bit? You have to understand that around that time, it's almost like Nintendo kind of loosened the grip on that leash, right? They gave you guys a little bit more slack. And then this thing just explodes. This family-friendly company being attached with grooming, sexual harassment, all these different allegations that were coming out. That's some serious stuff. Of course, Nintendo doesn't want their name attached. So I think what happened is that they probably reconvened. They elevated the standards for the licensing, for the parameters for someone to get a license. And now you really have to meet their super high standards. And if you can't approach Nintendo and tell them, this is how we're going to guarantee the safety from top to bottom, everything involved, then they're not going to grant you that license. It's possible that that's what happened here. Like I said, I'm viewing it from one angle, but without knowing the full story, I'm just running on theories. But you have to understand why Nintendo would be like, very concerned about this type of stuff. And very careful about who they grant licenses to. Because the last thing they want is their name attached to any of this stuff. Nintendo got away relatively unscathed with all those allegations. They were lucky that a lot of it stayed kind of small and almost within the gaming community. A lot of these outlets did not really pick it up. You can understand why that would be extremely bad PR for them to say, for CNN to run a story saying this Nintendo, someone, this 15-year-old child was sexually harassed or assaulted or whatever at this Nintendo tournament. You know how some of these outlets work. They're not going to dig super deep. It's like, oh, they're playing a Nintendo game. It must be a Nintendo tournament, right? So this is like I said, this is a real weird situation. I know a lot of people, I think, have commented, and they're like, well, what does the Smash community do going forward? I think what seriously does need to happen is there needs to be a serious meeting set up between the decision makers at Nintendo and almost like this Smash Brothers coalition, like these people that represent this community at the highest. Maybe you take one player, one broadcaster, a tournament organizer, and sort of create this little coalition that's going to speak on behalf of the community and represent a couple of these different entities and organizers and come to the table and have a serious conversation about not even like, hey, how can we get Nintendo licenses, but what can we do to ensure that we can kind of do this without interference or without fear of being shut down? I don't know what that looks like. Is it a bill of rights, like a minimum health and safety guarantee so that Nintendo feels more comfortable? Is it, open up a little bit more transparency in terms of, what you're doing to guarantee health and safety for people? Heck, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm on Twitter. We are Joel. DM me. I would be more than happy to be part of those conversations and work as an intermediate, because I want, just like anyone in the community, I want this to work out. And it seems like there's like this big miscommunication issue. And, maybe I'll make a separate video giving my suggestions on what the Smash community can do going forward. But, something needs to be done, because this is something that I think a lot of people want this to happen. Every other publisher community relationship has been able to be forged and they've been able to make it work, except for Nintendo. And like I said, I have my theories as to why that is, which is like, hey, if anyone wants to reach out, I'll be more than happy to be part of these conversations. But yeah, it looks like I hate to have been right, but it looks like I was right in terms of, when I said it doesn't look like this is going to be reversed. Now, if Smash World Tour wants to say, okay, yeah, it looks like we could run a tournament this year, I mean, it kind of feels like it's too late. You already told people you're going to stop. I'm sure a bunch of people changed their plans. It doesn't sound likely that they'll do it again this year. I'll be interested to see what happens at Panda Global, those championships. I'll be watching. But I'll end it in this note. Now what the Smash community does is really interesting, because Nintendo has shown that, with these last two statements that, hey, we'll keep the conversation going. It's not like they've gone into complete radio silence. So it's like, what you guys do is going to be very interesting, because I understand, like, hey, boycotts, you want to make some noise, but now you're kind of at this risk now. Now, if you make too much noise, someone at Nintendo might just be like, see, told you guys, look at these guys, immature. They're going to look at that and probably judge you on it and say, like, look, this is the community. Look at what they're doing. So it's almost like you want to do something, but now it's almost like this fear of like, you don't want to go too far, because if you go too far, you might burn that bridge, and Nintendo might just start like getting even crazier than they were. Like I said, maybe I'll do another video going to some suggestions. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about in the comments, and thanks for watching.